Hi everyone. I've decided to do another video blog. I've been thinking a lot lately about one of my poems called The Beauty of Understanding. I have to tell you a little bit about why I've been thinking about this poem. A few weeks ago, when I was in one of my local pubs, the Tir na Nog, I noticed this rather beautiful young woman sitting at the bar. I hadn't seen her for a long time. She used to be there every night. I used to think of her as a kind of angel, one of those people that you notice in a place if you frequent it often. You don't know who they are, but they seem to belong there. Anyway, I hadn't seen her for months, and I had actually thought about her. And I thought, well, maybe she quit drinking. Maybe she moved away. Those were my thoughts. That particular evening, seeing her there, I got up and went over and sort of poked her in the ribs and said, "Welcome back." And she turned to me and gave me a big smile and said, "Thank you." I said, "Where have you been?" And she said, "McLean's." McLean's is a mental hospital. She told me she'd been there for 3 months, trying to get better. Of course, it made me think of Ariel. McLean's was a place Ariel sometimes talked about, a place she wished she could go to when she was feeling down, like she needed someone to take care of her. She thought about going to McLean's. But McLean's is not a place where you just go to. McLean's is a place for those who have money, or at least have friends who can help them get there. Anyway, a couple of days after I ran into this young woman, I was on my way to the Tir na Nog again, and we sort of almost bumped into each other as we were going in the door. And she stopped me and said hello, and she said, "You know, for the first time in a long time today, I felt joy. And I felt like I wanted to create things. I haven't had these feelings for a long time." She was very happy. So we went into the bar and we sat down and... No, let me back up for a moment. As we were standing outside the bar, she looked down the street and she said, "Look at the moon." And I turned around and looked at the moon, which was rising over Union Square. And I quoted a couple of lines from this poem to her. She took them in, and then we went inside, sat down at the bar, and began to talk. And in the course of our conversation, I find myself sharing a little more of the poem with her from time to time. Until finally she said to me, "Give me the entire poem." So I recited it to her. She looked baffled and she said, "Can you write it down for me?" And I said, "Sure." And I grabbed a napkin, she gave me a pen, and I wrote it down for her. And she was confused and she said she didn't understand the first lines. And like a fool, I decided I would explain the first couple of lines to her as if I understood them. And I told her that I thought they meant that trying to understand anything could leave you more confused in the end than you were in the beginning, and that understanding could lead you to thoughts of suicide, of ending your own life, and that that was uglier than death. I had written this poem at a time in my life when I was really rather mad. It was part of a group of poems that I wrote all at the same time. And I was going to publish them one time as a small book of poems called The Voice of God. That never happened. That particular poem is now the middle part of a book that has never been published, that I wrote, called God's Despite. Anyway, the poem itself is called The Beauty of Understanding. The beauty of understanding is uglier than death, which is why it is better to be ugly than dead. If you've a scar upon your face, it's beautiful, or the Grand Canyon is a lie, and the moon is not as it appears to be. We know this because we believe in it, and so might you. If you don't want to be one with her, that's okay. She'll love you anyway, because night always looks after day. You know, I wrote that poem a long time ago, and it means more to me now than it did when I wrote it. Anyway, thanks for listening.